Good morning, everybody. It's Alan. And here I'm going to work on a Carissa. This tree was much taller and thicker, and it had most of the growth up through here and out into here. And then it suffered a catastrophic damage to the trunk. As you can see, it's now completely hollow. And the hollow actually runs all the way up through here. And I've let it grow for a period of years. But now I want to work on it. And I'm going to turn it into sort of a windswept Bunjin kind of jobby thing. So I've always wondered whether I should keep this low branch, but for now I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to incorporate it into the style, into the design. And then we have this branch here, and then this top stuff will be reduced considerably, and then I want to angle it all so it's like this, so it's all sweeping down. So I've got my chalkboard with me, and I'm certainly no artist, but I think I can hopefully give you an idea. Try to keep the tree for reference here. Okay, so where am I here? Okay, I'm almost at the bottom. So let's say that's the top of the pot. So the tree kind of comes up like this, and then it sweeps over considerably, and then it's rather craggy up in here, and the taper is pretty good. And then I want this low branch to come down like this, and then all the foliage to be like that. And then this branch here will come down, and then all the foliage will be down like that. And then all this upper stuff, same thing, it's all going to come down like that. And even the apex, I'm going to bring it something like that. So that is a pretty primitive idea of what I want for the finished product. So if we bring the tree back, maybe transpose it onto that, you can see there's a lot of work. There's a lot of excess growth up top, elongated growth that does not need to be that long. There's a certain amount of dead. In fact, there was a branch here that would have been perfect to be in here, but it died, so, well, okay. And then the lower branch also has some pretty heavy-duty growth that needs to be trimmed up. And then, really what I'm going to do today is I'm going to repot it. So, this tree is root bound. And the best way to tell if your tree is root bound is when you add water, if it just sits there and percolates very, very slowly. So this tree has water that sits considerably. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is repot it. And then the next the first thing I'm going to do is just start taking off all the excess. And then I may actually leave the design process for another month or two to allow the tree to recover from the repotting. Carissas are tough plants. And I define tough as able to take massive root pruning. They root easily from cuttings. They can take fairly poor soil. And the one thing they do not like and will not tolerate is cold. Freezing temperatures kill them. So, even just removing the excess will give us a much better idea where we're going with this tree. And then I'm going to do the repotting. And I'm thinking very seriously, because if we look at this tree from this side here, you can see it's leaning considerably. And I guess we could go all the way around. You know, there is a potential for this to be the front, somewhere in here to be the front. But then you don't see the scar. And, you know, if it died back that profoundly, I think we really need to accentuate that scar. So I'm thinking very seriously of when I repot it, just to bring it up more like that even, to really accentuate that scar. And I'm planning on putting it into the same pot, but just giving it a little bit of rejuvenation. So the first thing to do is just start clipping off all the excess. And when I'm talking about chopping off the excess, I'm just talking about chopping off the elongated growth. If we look up here in close-up, you can see that there's a lot of branching in here, and some of it may go, but I'm not making that decision today. I'm not going to choose which branches stay and which branches go. I'm just going to take off the excess. So this branch here, which is very, very long, is going to get cut back to here. And that's really all I'm going to do today. I think we can focus on the top. So once again, this branch here comes from here, and I probably want to keep this and then bend it so it becomes part of the apex, but this is way too long here. So I'm just going to cut everything that's long. And I'm going to be somewhat careful about what I'm doing. I do not want to take too much off. But this is not really something that we're going to need to worry about as far as the styling. Because if we look at our chalk drawing, you see that especially this top up here is going to be pretty small. It's only going to come out to here, and we've already got branches that are out that far. So what I like to do is I like to cut back and then grow my branches out to the silhouette that I want. And we also have some dead, which is not uncommon. So that looks pretty good. So we're going to take, you know, like this, and then take this one like this and wire everything down. And then the second branch here, this branch here, it has also a lot of that same kind of growth that can be reduced. Although my camera's probably not even showing it, is it? Because I've got it still stuck on the top. My producer gets so mad at me when I do that. Of course, if for me to meet my producer, I need to go find a mirror. It's all dead in there. And just shorten some of this up. And I never did understand why the original tree suffered such a catastrophic damage. But trying to figure out why now is pretty much useless because it happened. And I think what will happen is this tree will end up being just as nice, just in an entirely different way. And many times, if we were going to do a juniper in this style, we'd want to save some gin, some dead wood for gin. But Carissa is a tropical plant, and tropical plants in general, there are some exceptions, but in general, tropical plants don't have hard wood, so they don't hold gin or shari. It just rots away. And Carissa is a perfect example of that. Very soft wood. That rots away very easily. So I don't even try to create any kind of gin. Okay, so now let's see where we're at here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And these two branches here are really much in the perfect position to do what I'm looking to do. But up here we're going to need to add some wire and bring them around to create that image that I showed you in the chalk drawing. So it's still looking pretty disheveled. Another thing I know I don't want is this weird growth right here. And so now it's time to repot it. And I'm going to do my best to repot it so it's more up like that. Is that another dead piece? I do believe it is. Okay, the repotting process means I need my tray and get my soil. I plan on keeping this tree in the same pot, just lifting it up a little bit. Once again, angling it more like that to accentuate the dead. And I am going to apply lime sulfur to that today also. So if we lift up the root ball, you can see it's in bonsai soil, and the pot just needs a good rinse, which I will do later. Actually, I think I'm going to do it right now before I even start to hit the root ball itself. Okay, the pot is nice and clean. And even though it's in bonsai soil, you can really see all kind of crud. And that's just organic matter, like leaves that are fallen. And also the roots die and they produce a certain amount of organic matter. And this tree's just been in this pot a long time. Like I said, Carissa are pretty tough. So the roots on this guy are actually pretty nice. It's a very still day today. Zero wind. Absolutely none. Well, that was pretty good. If I'm going to try to plant it like that, then some of these roots in the back need to be shortened so I can get that angle. There's something like that. And I do believe I'm going to clean up and go wash these roots off of all this crud that's on there. So once again, another pause. So I want the trunk to be more like that, but then that creates some distance here where this is moving backwards quite a bit. And I'm very leery of wiring the whole trunk because it's just so, I mean, the wood is rotting away as we speak. So I may have to do a compromise where I spin it a little like this, still try to bring it up, but I think that's probably a better front. And I've got two different grades of bonsai soil, although they're very, very similar. So place some here in the front to give it that angle. And there may be some roots here that need to be removed in the future. So how is that looking? I think that's looking pretty good. And this is a smaller grade, but only barely. And this is definitely a tree that needs a chopstick to get the roots down into the soil. And as you can see, angling it up has created some surface roots here. But I'm going to leave them for now. I don't think it's going to be of any consequence. And I'm a small batch bonsai soil maker, so I could tell you what's in this mix, but the next mix is going to be different because when you make small batches, your ingredients may be exactly the same, but the combination and the proportions may change. So this is predominantly lava rock and Chattahoochee rock. And I use Chattahoochee because in the summer when it rains so much, I need much better drainage. I really don't know too many people that use Chattahoochee rock because for all intents and purposes, Chattahoochee rocks are miniature bowling balls. They do not hold any water at all, but they do provide great airspace. So there we go. And now I think I'm going to do a top dressing of my finer grade soil. I'm just going to give it a light covering. Of the finer soil. And see some of these roots like this, That one can probably go because it's not going anywhere. It'll end up dying because it's not even growing into the soil. But for the rest of them, I'm not even going to worry about it. And so I'm not going to wire everything into place today because I want the tree to rest. You know, cutting off a majority of the foliage is not that stressful, but it's a stressful procedure. And then root pruning is very definitely probably the most stressful thing that you do with a bonsai. And then the wiring also creates some stress because when you wire a branch, you're basically damaging the cambium and forcing the tree to heal, which then sets the branch into place. It's the healing of the cambium that sets the branch into place. So I don't want to do all three all at once. Give this guy a chance to rest. And then last but not least, paint the dead wood, which is all, God, look at it, it's all, so much of it is dying away. This Carissa is such soft wood. And this was a magnificent tree when it was bigger. And it had, you know, it was just unbelievable. And I thought I had pictures of it, but I can't find them in my archives anywhere, so that's pretty disappointing. That's the beauty of having a YouTube channel. Every video is now archived. Man, this stuff is so soft. All right. Paintbrush and lime sulfur. So in the bonsai world, lime sulfur is applied with a brush at full strength. It was actually developed as a fungicide, and I believe an insecticide too, to be diluted as a typical insecticide, fungicide, pesticide is, you know, 1 teaspoon per gallon and then sprayed. But in the bonsai world, it's typically used full strength, painted on. And I no longer have it on the turntable, so we need to spin it. See, all this is fresh. That all just died here. Not died, but just fell off. And well, I mean, the thing is still alive. And sometimes a catastrophic dieback of the trunk can create a very interesting vision for the tree. And I think once we wire everything into place and give it that downward trajectory of the branches, this tree will have that vision. It will be a tree that has survived some major catastrophic damage and yet is still hanging in there. So there we go. It goes on orange, but dries to a pure white. If you look at bonsai displays, especially Japanese displays, many junipers and pines that have dead wood, you will see that it is that stark white, and that's the lime sulfur, and they're not really worried about that. Sometimes artists in the US don't like the starkness, so they'll add some India ink. I don't think the starkness is that bad myself, so I don't add India ink. And you know, I have to admit, there may be a time when this tree just rots completely. And well, okay, hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to enjoy it while I can. So there's the lime sulfur. Make sure the top of the jar fits on. Okay. And can we pan out here a little more so you can see the whole tree? And, you know, the immediate thing that I see is that this part here is still way too heavy visually. But more can come off. And I put my tools away, but there's more that can come off here. This part here looks like it's really primed to be in perfect position the way I want it. And then the top also needs to have some branches coaxed into place. Even some of these smaller branches that I reduced can grow out again. Take this guy into here, pull the apex around, and do something like that. And of course, it's kind of difficult at this point to really get everything in place the way I want it. And that will come. That will come. And if you're subscribed, you'll be able to see that video when I upload it, the progress of this tree. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. Carissa is not a popular tree up north because it freezes to death. So you need to give it some major wintertime protection. But it's a very, very popular shrub around here. You see it everywhere. And this particular variety is called Boxwood Beauty. There are numerous varieties of Carissa, and this particular one is called Boxwood Beauty. So that's it for this video. I will let it rest, give it some fertilizer. I'm going to water it in immediately. And it was also in a fairly shady spot, so I will probably put it back in that shady spot. And then slowly, over time, bring it out into more sun. So there you go, Carissa in a slanting Bunjin windswept style. So thank you so much for watching.